Sorry, we do start at 10 o'clock. We're just waiting. Apparently, having difficulty with somebody coming in, so I'm allowing that to start slightly a few minutes later. Okay, so please, if we can make our way in, yeah. Switched on? Yeah. Well, welcome to the licensing subcommittee for Thursday, 5th of December at 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, slightly later, 10:05. Let me start with some of my announcements. First of all, we've been watched live on our Hillingdon YouTube channel. Only the people sitting on the desks around here. The camera is facing this way, so these are the people only that will be seen. You will only be heard if you toggle on and toggle off on your microphone. So when you are speaking, please make sure we toggle on and then toggle off. Some housekeeping: fire alarms. I'm not expecting a fire alarm. If it does go off, it's the real thing. So if you leave the way you've come in or onto your rights, we have officers here. You can always follow them. And we meet outside the Miller's Tap, which is rather apt for a licensing hearing. Mobile phones, please switch them off. Any other devices, tablets and everything that might make a noise, please switch them off as well. Right, before moving on to the agenda, let me introduce myself. My name is Councillor Roy Chamdell. I'm the chairman of the committee. Assisting me with the decision making, we have councillors Janet Gardner and Alan Kaufman. From legal, we have Chantal McLeod. Have I said it correct this time? McLeod, sorry. I will say it. To make sure our decisions are legal and just. And we have Anisha Teji on my left from Democratic Services, who will be taking the minutes and also ensure I follow procedure so I don't get in trouble. We have other people around the table as well. I would like you to, if you could, introduce yourself and tell me why you're here. Moving left to right.
Jeannie Mukherjee, Licensing Officer, London Borough of Hillingdon.
Mr. Panchal from Personal License Course is representing the applicant.
James Rankin representing the applicant, well, not the applicant, the respondent, I suppose, the licensee.
Ahmed Abu Zaid, the owner of the pub.
My name is Oliver Darius. I'm representing the Food and Health and Safety team.
Daniel Ferrer, Licensing Team Manager, representing the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm aware we have a large audience today. Let me just say, this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. It's quite clear. It determines your speaking rights. So only the people who are listed on here are allowed to speak. So if you do have comments, please keep them to yourself. It's only, to be fair, it's only the people who are written down here to speak. Right, let's kick on with the agenda. Apologies for absence.
No apologies today, Chairman.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting? Right, okay. We have, everything is in part one, nothing in part two. That's, so if it's in part two, unfortunately, then we have to switch the cameras off. Any matters that have been notified in advance or urgent?
The addendum item, Chairman.
Right, has everybody got these rather large packs of addendums? We've labelled them A1 and A2. Yes? Gentlemen, have you got the...
Sorry, yes, I've got it.
You've got the addendums, yeah? Yeah, councillors? Okay, thank you. Ginny, far away.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to all of you. Today's hearing is in relation to a review application submitted by the Licensing Authority, acting as a responsible authority under the Act. The premises being reviewed is a restaurant called the Prince of Wales Sahara City, which offers food, drinks and shisha smoking facilities to its customers. The address of the premises is 1 Harlington Road, Hillingdon, UB8 3HX, which is located at the intersection of Uxbridge Road and Harlington Road. The review application, which is at Appendix 1 of the Agenda Pack, that's from page 15 to page 81, was submitted by the licensing authority on 17th of October 2019, and the consultation ended on 14th of November 2019. Between the end of the consultation and today's hearing, several pieces of information have come to light at different points in time, which is why there have been additions to the original agenda pack, and which also explains the delay in circulating the addenda. Apologies for that. So there are 13 appendices in total, including the submission from the premises license holder, which is at Appendix 10, and this was submitted on 2nd of December 2019. This is in the first set of addendum. Due to repagination of the addendum before publication, the pages shown on the content are now different to the actual page numbers. So if you need any further clarification on the page numbers, then please let me know. Moving on to the application. So this review application submitted by the licensing authority requests for the removal of the DPS, to modify the conditions on the existing license, and to replace the existing plan with the proposed plan as shown in Annexure X. That's page 81 of the agenda pack. I'm aware that the plan on the agenda pack isn't very clear, so if you want any clearer copies of the plan, I have some, so which I can.
So I'll initiate.
Thank you. So of the 3 recommendations proposed by the licensing authority, the licensing department has already received a change in DPS application on 29th of November 2019. This information is provided in the second set of addendum at Appendix 11. Moving on to the representations, paragraphs 5.1 and 5.2 on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda pack list the representations we have received for this.
Sorry, what pages was those again?
Page 5 and page 6 of the original agenda pack. So it contains the representations we have received for this review application. Food, Health and Safety has objected to the application on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance and public safety. Their representation is in Appendix 3 of the agenda pack between pages 87 to 92. They have also submitted some photos to show the outside structure at the rear of the premises in Appendix 13, which is in the second set of addendum. Councillor Richard Mills's representation as a ward councillor is in Appendix 4 of the agenda pack, which is on page 92. His objection is on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and prevention of public nuisance. Appendix 5 from page 95 to 102 consists of local resident Deborah Craig's representation and the log of the complaints from August to November 2019. Mrs. Craig has made a further submission as she could not attend today. This is at Appendix 9 in the first set of addendum. Appendices 6 and 7 consist of 2 further representations from interested parties included in pages 103 to 107 of the agenda pack. I visited the premises on 17th of October with my colleague and had put up the blue notice on one of the doors of the premises, which was clearly visible to passers-by. Appendix 8 shows the photographs of the dates and the times when the notice was not displayed. After hearing all the parties and in light of all the evidence and information, I would invite the subcommittee to determine the review application to ensure that the promotion of the licensing objectives is upheld with respect to this premises. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Clarifications. I'll kick off first. You mentioned photos showing, I believe it was the blue notice? Yeah, okay. Could you just tell me which pages they're on, please?
So that's page 111 of the original agenda pack. So page 111 to 118.
So this is these different doors, or is this the same door of the pub?
This is the door where I had put up the notice on 17th of October 2019.
And the blue notice should have gone on when?
On 17th. It was served on the license holder on 17th of October.
And did you physically see it there? Did you?
Yes.
Do you actually physically put it on the
Yes.
the door? And
Yes, Chairman.
so it's not on the photographs now, on the ones that you provided. So
It starts from 109, not 111. So as you can see on page 109, it's 29th of October at 2:57 p.m. The notice was not there. There is an email from me to Mr. Panchal, the agent representing the license holder, asking him to speak to the license holder about the notice. And then there are further photographs from 4th of November, 5th of November, 6th of November, so different dates. And I understand the last photograph on page 118 has a notice. Because it's in black and white, it can't be seen clearly. So I understand that the notice was put up again a couple of days before the expiry of the consultation.
okay, thank you.
Councillors, any clarification on what's been presented?
We now move on to the applicant review. That will be Mr. Daniel. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Daniel Ferrer, licensing team manager, here on behalf of the licensing authority representing the responsible authority. The licensing authority did submit a review application on the 17th of October under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003 for the premises known as the Prince of Wales, located at 1 Hillingdon Road. And just to recap, Chair, it was under the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Chair and councillors, you will be aware and read our application for the review. It's quite a chunky one, and plus the additional information and the other addendums. I don't intend to go through every single document or letter. What I would like to do is my intention to go through specifically the licensing objectives and highlight where we say that the operators, AM Property and Development Limited, and the director, Mr. Ahmed Abuzed, have not upheld those licensing objectives and in some places completely disregarded them. I think firstly it's important to start off with our why, so the reasons why we have brought this licensing review application. Firstly, the various issues, and there are a number of them, public nuisance ones, non-compliance of conditions, the lack of engagement with the licensing holder, have been going on since 2017, Chair. And quite frankly, enough is enough. We have lost confidence in the management of the licensing holder. The government's guidance at Section 182 talks about giving early opportunity to the operators to rectify the situation. And we say we done this, the licensing service, back in 2017. But we say the licensing holders have failed to respond to these warnings. Now, since 2017, the nature of the premises, we say, has fundamentally changed from that of a traditional pub where licensable activities were taking place relatively indoors to very much a different premises, late night, where activity takes place outside. And in short, Chair, the current premises licence does not reflect the current operation. And the last reason for bringing this review is to deter the operators for any future breaches. It is our genuine intention not to punish the licence holder, but for us to formalise conditions, regulate control of the operations, and formalise these in a premises licence. I want to move on to the licensing objectives, and the starting point must be crime and disorder. And a key date in relation to this licensing objective is the Thursday, the 8th of August in 2019. And this is best summarised on page 44 of the bundle in PC Aisha Razak's witness statement. We don't have to read through completely all of it, I'm sure you've read it, but I'll highlight and summarise the facts. She was there, a PC, who arrived on the scene. Witnesses stated that they had seen an altercation between a large group, approximately 30 patrons, who were mostly from the travelling community, and a fight took place, Chair. As a result, a male was seen bleeding to the head after the assault. Now, without looking at the details, the main things that we should note as a licensing authority in her witness statement is that there was no CCTV at the premises to assist the police in their investigations. There was a suggestion that the venue had served little bottles of alcohol, such as vodka, and that people had brought these in, and they were not being stopped by management or staff. Furthermore, a majority of these patrons were refusing to leave, and management could not assist in that happening. Further on from PC Razak's statement, we have a letter from PC Dave Butler, who is the police licensing officer for the area, and he states his views quite clear in that letter.
Sorry, what page is that?
Page 42 to 43, Chair. Again, just to re-emphasise that there was violence that occurred at the premises. Again, no CCTV there for securing vital evidence that could have assisted the authorities. There was no security provision there, and we say this would have been best dealt with by SAI registered staff. There were none. They did not anticipate the events that were going to occur, and they lacked foresight. And when something like this did happen, they were ill-equipped, understaffed, and underprepared. PC Dave Butler, continues that he's quite shocked that there was no attempt to call the police in the lead-up and during this incident. And we say, Chair, from the licensing authority, that the operators did not want this formally recorded, and that is why they didn't call the police. To sum up the crime and disorder licensing objective, Chair, PC Dave Butler puts this quite expressly in his letter when he states about the management and the operators. It was, quote, "It was totally irresponsible and neglectful for staff to just call the London Ambulance Service," end quote. Chair, that's crime and disorder. I want to quickly move over to protection of children from harm. Again, looking at the date of 8th of August 2019, and this is again seen on page 44 from PC Razak's witness statement. I mean, serious questions must be asked in relation to this licensing objective, in relation to the premises age verification policy. Is there one that is actually in place? And are staff even trained in age verification policy? Because we see quite clearly in PC Razak's statement that there was an individual who appeared to be younger than 18 to herself and other officers that attended the incident, and he was continuing telling us that he was below the age of 18 and had been underage drinking, Chair. Finally, I want to move on to prevention of public nuisance. Again, Chair, there are a lot of parties to this and witnesses, so I want to really respect their time, and I don't want to duplicate in the issues that they're going to raise. But can I just say, on page 45, the licensing service have created, if you like, a summary, a log from 2017 to 2019 of the various issues that have been experienced by residents. And we can see, year after year, 2017, 2018, 2019, 9 a.m, p.m. till late, past midnight, went all over the weekend in specific bursts. And what we intend to do, Chair, is to break this pattern, because if the premises continue like this, operate like this, there is no doubt that in 2020 we will have the same complaints. I want to briefly talk about the Council's actions and the engagements, because I think they add context and colour to the background of this application. Firstly, just to reiterate, the licensing service have attempted to work with the operators, in short, since 2017, reminded them of their obligations and constantly advised them about the consequences if they do not comply. This is this is reflected in the work done by my colleague Stephen Dormer. And on my count, pages 46 to 61, we don't have to look at them, but there's 10 letters from Stephen Dormer. And they highlight a number of issues that were raised to the operators. And just to add a few, the smoking structure outside being unauthorised, correct licences were not produced, the personal licence of Mr. Abuzed wasn't produced, the basics, Chair, advice about noise complaints, compliance about the outside area being used after 11 o'clock, even the installation of speakers outside on the premises and the performance of dance in the form of belly dancers, unauthorised. And Stephen Dormer not only sends letters to the licence holder, he sends them to the agents, he sends them to the limited company, and he even sends them to the personal licence holder's, Mr. Abuzed's personal address. So we say that there is no excuse whatsoever for the operators to say that they were not aware of these issues, the complaints or the breaches, and furthermore, the ways to resolve them. It is abundantly clear. Mr. Abuzed, in fairness, did take some action in the form of a minor variation, and that was on the 10th of July of this year. But, Chair, we say that this was the incorrect application form to use, because on pages 73 to 74, we will see a letter from the service manager for licensing, food, safety and regulation, Ms. Stephanie Waterford. And we can turn to that now, briefly, 73 to 74. And she basically says in this representation why she is objecting to the minor variation. She says in the second last paragraph of page 73, this popularity of the customers coming to the premises has had a negative effect on the surrounding neighbourhood, leading to issues with noise and disturbance, parking and the occasional confrontation by patrons visiting the establishment. She goes on further, the minor variation is seeking to effectively authorise the use of the rear garden. However, there are no additional measures proposed to address the potential negative impacts on the licensing objectives. She continues on page 74, indeed, the application is silent on any exact details on the intentions of the outdoor area. So they submitted a minor variation. We say it should have been a full. If they did submit a minor variation, why didn't they volunteer any proposed measures? We say they didn't want to be restrictive. They didn't want to have a full variation because they knew they would be in a process such as this where conditions would have been applied. The final interaction, if you like, has got to be the 4th of October of this year. My visit with Stephen Dormer. I won't go through my witness statement. It's page 5. But essentially, I'll break it down to 3 issues that we had. The layout of the premises did not correspond with a premises license. We witnessed 50 customers, approximately 50 customers, I should correct myself, using the outside area after 11 o'clock in breach of a current condition. And finally, late night refreshment being provided outside when the premises license authorises late night refreshment for inside only. And Chair, all I can say is we're considering formal action in relation to a potential prosecution of this. That in itself, these unauthorised activities, essentially an offence under Section 136 of the Licensing Act, and that in itself is a crime which we are trying to prevent. I want to finally, Chair, move on to our recommendations. You'll be quite aware of the decisions that you could take. For example, modify or add conditions of the licence, exclude licensor activities, remove the designated premises supervisor, or suspend the premises licence. Or you could even revoke it. And we say that we will fully respect the decision that you take. We have recommended in our report the following: the removal of the designated premises supervisor, which has been resolved now to some extent, 17 conditions to be added to the premises licence, and the plan to be updated. I want to briefly mention, in relation to those 17 conditions that we...
So those would be the pages 23, 24, 25, yeah?
Yes, at the end of my review application.
So if you go to pages 23, 24,
I'll just
25.
confirm. Yes, that's right, Chair, sorry. And I've noticed in the additional bundle that the other side have proposed, there is mention of CCTV being repaired and also a sound limiter being installed. And we say, great, moving forward, we want that. Actually, let's formalise that on the licence so there's no further breaches. To summarise, Chair, we feel that our recommendations are appropriate, proportionate, and that most importantly, they address the causes of concern. In terms of the specific 17 conditions we have recommended, we feel that they are reasonable, clear, enforceable, and are clearly linked to the problems associated with the premises. Now, I'm happy to go through the conditions in depth if you wish. However, as I said, I do want to respect the other parties' time who want to speak. So if you've got no further questions or queries for me, those will be my submissions in relation to our review application.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrer. Time-wise, I tend to run it. You take what time you need to make your representation, because according to everybody has a fair chance, and on your representation is how we come to a decision as a licensing committee. Right, clarifications. There's a few. If you go to page 7, in terms of the information pack, you know, we've had great information packs to deal with. So, you know, this is sort of part of the thing. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth paragraph down. And you mentioned it in your submission about Mr. Ahmed is known to display a degree of aggression towards council officers. Could you expand on that in terms of how that fits in with the licensing objectives?
Chair, you're on page 7. Those are the officers in case observations.
Okay. Yeah, it is. Right. So page 8. Page 17. Going down to the bottom box, on the paragraph which says following transfer of the premises license in 2016. It says there, the premises license conditions and operating schedules have not been updated via variations to properly address new impacts on. Do you have any evidence of this? I haven't seen nothing in the information pack.
No. We wouldn't have put, because there's no applications to include. I've just simply put that there has been no variation or new premises license applications since the transfer.
Okay, the next paragraph down from that, again it's asking for include more robust conditions which are more suitable and appropriate for the operation. Do we have any evidence to suggest these operating schedules will really sort out the issues that have been raised by yourself?
Well, it's definitely our aim, Chair. It's always difficult to look in the future and look at the potential impact that conditions will have, but looking at them clearly and carefully thinking about the conditions, we say that they will go a long way to prevent any breaches or disregard to licensing objectives.
Okay, we move across to page 18 now. Protection of children from harm, which is one of the objectives which you are stating have not been adhered to. It says the local licensing police have submissions that refer to suspicion of underage persons consuming alcohol. With adequate and robust operation measures in place, it's got to be prevented. So was the person who they are suggesting was underage, were they interviewed, or was there any evidence of that? Because once again, I haven't seen nothing in the information pack about
No, all we have, Chair, quite rightly, you point out, is the witness statement from PC Razak. So a suggestion.
Page 19. If we go into late night refreshment, if you could just clarify for me. So it says there Sunday to Wednesday, 11 to midnight.
Yes.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 11 to 2 o'clock. So does that include the drinking up time? So what time do they actually shut?
No, for that late night refreshment is purely just hot food or drink after 11 o'clock.
I'm asking about what time do they actually close the premises? Normally we have the half an hour drinking up time, as we call it.
Yes,
in the
sure.
good old days. So, is it do they close at 2 o'clock, or do the last sort of call out is 2:30?
I can't give a definite answer. Probably best with the license holder. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, yeah, if you,
We'll go with that. I'll get clarification later on. Answer that on page 21 again. It was a protection from children from harm. You've already answered that. Going down. I do apologise. I do go for the whole information pack, sort of sentence by sentence. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth paragraph down on page 21.
Yes.
Halfway down, these include the structures at rear premises that have not been approved by planning.
Yes.
What does that have to do with licensing?
You've correctly pointed out, Chair, it doesn't. It's a separate system.
Okay, page 23. Top of the paragraph, first point, the layout of the premises were not accurately reflected. Could you tell me what that was? What exactly wasn't reflected in the plan?
Well, the outside area, Chair, we say that there's a structure out there with fixed fixtures, if you like.
So if you go off the A3 that's been sent down, which they kindly printed, because I couldn't make, with my eyesight, as good as it is, even with glasses, I couldn't make it out in the information pack.
Sure.
Now I can see that quite clearly. So what are you referring to exactly, if you can?
Yeah, I mean, this copy that we got, the A3, is the proposed one to amend it. The original one should be earlier in the application form where this is not actually put in.
Can you tell me what page that is?
I'll just find it, Chair. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's right.
Right. Councillors, we're looking at page 40 now. Right. Could you tell us exactly what you're talking about now, in terms of it's not being reflected?
If you look at page 40, the top left, which says EDA, which I don't know what it refers to, basically reflects the old premises licence, the full a pub which has a garden area. And you will see on the one that you've got in front of you, Dave, that basically reflects what it should be, a physical structure, not we say not a beer garden, but where...
Got it.
You got it? Right, thank you.
Right, move on to page 24. Now, these are the conditions which you are suggesting, which will allow the premises to adhere to the licensing objectives.
Yes, that's correct.
Could you point number 2, you
yes.
put down in event that a serious assault.
Yes.
Could you break that down for me? What do you mean by serious assault?
Yeah, I'll make it compared to a minor assault. So, for example, if there was a bit of a push, we would not expect the licence holder to get a forensic investigation out. So, serious assaults, such as the ones that was witnessed on the 8th of August, we would say for the police to be called, and, if necessary, the crime scene to be preserved.
Thank you. Councillors, any clarifications, or have I covered most of them again? Yeah.
We okay? Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Right, we now move on to responsible authorities and any other parties. So who would like to go first? Oh, well, it's Mr. Darius. Fire away, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to reintroduce myself, really, my name is Oliver Darius. I'm the team manager for the Food and Health and Safety team here at London Borough of Hillingdon. The reasons for my representation today and supporting evidence around the primary licensing objectives...
Sorry, could you just move the speaker slightly closer to yourself?
Certainly.
Sorry.
Yeah. Can you hear me clearly now? A bit closer. Can you hear me clearly? Yes, I'll start again. Oliver Darius from the Food and Health and Safety team at the London Borough of Hillingdon. So the reasons for my representation supporting evidence today around the primary licensing objectives of prevention of crime and disorder and prevention of public nuisance and public safety. I make this representation today in the place of my colleague, Peter Rudd, who is a member of my team. I've suspected the Prince of Wales to have been accommodating smoking since around about 2017. To my knowledge, between that period and now, there have been times when the premises have been open and periods when the premises have been closed. But visits have taken place by enforcement officers from my team and advice given. An officer visit to the Prince of Wales took place to complete a food hygiene inspection, and this is the substantive part of the work of my team. This food hygiene inspection took place in April 2018 when arrangements for accommodating smoking were observed. And this was reported back to me. Advice and instruction on this occasion was not given in connection only with food hygiene. Following on from this, however, I accompanied myself on a visit with Peter Rudd to the Prince of Wales, also known at the time as Sahara City, on a visit that took place on the 15th of May 2018. And this was really to review in detail the extent of areas around the garden to the back of the premises, which were undercover and which would constitute a smoke-free place. Measurements were taken along the boundaries with a sketch diagram and illustrating photographs were taken in order to establish evidence of any breach of the Health Act. There was an elaborate arrangement in place of linked parasols forming a continuous roof structure and a further area with a retractable roof. The extent of the roof structure reached substantially over to the boundary and parts of the premises where walls and or planting were present, impeding free airflow. And a letter was subsequently sent to Mr. Ahmed Abouzed in June 2018. We have repeatedly advised Mr. Abouzed in connection with the use of parasols, the extent of cover and their proximity to the boundary of the premises and other structures, such as high back benches, vinyl panels and fabricated metal shutters, which are calculated to form part of the walls to this enclosed space. I wondered, Mr. Chairperson, if it was worth me briefly going over the provisions of the Health Act to explain where the offence occurs.
Your representation?
Certainly. Okay. If any of the premises are open to the public or used as a place of work, they must be smoke-free. This is any premises. There are some exemptions to this, but this does not apply in this scenario. And I should say that smoking refers to smoking tobacco or anything which contains tobacco or smoking in any other substance. And this certainly extends to the use of hookah pipes or shisha pipes, as we also know them. There is a definition of enclosed and substantially enclosed, which I would like to briefly refer to, and this refers to areas that have a ceiling or a roof, except for doors, windows and passageways. So essentially, in this regard, around the boundary of any space which is enclosed with a roof, anything openable, such as doors, windows and passageways, are counted as open in the calculation. It is evident, in summary, through a number of visits that we've carried out and advice given to Mr. Abouzed, that the advice has not been taken into account and the relevant changes have not been made to make this area to the back of the public house to be compliant, and that smoking has been continuing in this space, which we consider to be substantially enclosed. There was a great deal of detail on our calculations from the visit in 2018 that was put in a detailed letter to Mr. Abouzed, which showed that the scenario here presented falls way below the threshold, which is the 50-50 rule. So that is to say that any substantially enclosed space must be more than 50% open around its perimeter. Just to go on from there to emphasise, and it's in the appendix in the evidence given by Mr. Rudd, that we most recently visited again on the 6th of November 2019 and observed the configuration of the smoking shelters appeared to be very similar to our previous visits. And this includes the visit where I attended in 2018. And that we've also observed smoking continuing in these substantially enclosed spaces. If there are any questions.
Thank you. Yes. Here goes. I will have a few questions. Right. You've objected on 3 points: prevention of crime and disorder, public nuisance, and public safety. So, which part of your representation refers to crime and disorder first, sir? Just to clarify for me and the councillors.
Yes, certainly. It is an offence to fail to stop smoking in a smoke-free place. This is a matter that is being referred to me as the lead officer for consideration to prosecute.
And public nuisance? And then obviously after that, public safety. If you...
Certainly, as far as public nuisance is concerned, it's well documented that the operation of shisha lounges in this way, accommodated in this way, can cause nuisance in two ways in particular. Not only where there are a great deal of patrons that gather outside, the noise from those individuals outside is unabated by any enclosure, and there can be no enclosure because under the Health Act it is required to be substantially open, so the noise will be unabated, and this meets the nuisance criteria. And in addition to that, the possibility, likelihood I should say, of smoke drifting from the premises across the boundary and affecting neighbouring premises. In connection with public safety, in a sense, Councillor, one leads into the other insofar as the operation of the business. We deal with the Health Act under the banner, if you like, of health and safety as part of our programmes of work. It is health protection legislation is predominantly there to dealing with the health impact of second-hand smoke, and that really is a health impact in the context of public health, but also health and safety of employees in the business.
Thank you. If you go to the information pack, go to page 90. Second paragraph down, additional information, I believe the relevant when considering a premise operator as a shawisha. Is that supposed to be shisha?
That's supposed to be shisha.
Okay. If you go right down to the last 4 lines of that block, you've said even if opening hours and noise produced by a site can be controlled by planning, which has absolutely nothing to do with us, and licensing constraint, there's nothing that can control the nuisance caused by smoke drifting to residents close to the premises. Could you just explain, because with the plans that we have, how you come to that determination?
Okay, I mean, I'm not familiar with the arrangements insofar as neighbouring properties in this area, nor do I enforce nuisance in the borough, but it's well, as I mentioned previously, it's well established that smoking in open spaces where you have a number of patrons is likely to cause drifting of smoke across the perimeter boundary, and so if we have neighbouring residential properties nearby, then it is likely that a nuisance may occur.
Okay, thank you. Now, about the 50-50 rule. So, just to absolutely clear for me and the committee, it doesn't adhere to the 50-50 rule. The calculations, I've looked at that diagram. I understand the 50-50 rule. It's it's difficult, but from the expert's point of view, it doesn't meet the 50-50 rule. Is that what you're...
That is correct. In a letter of June 2018, when we wrote to Mr. Abized, Mr. Rudd writes with our calculations made from that visit and calculates that the space at the back of the pub accommodating shisha smoking is 35% permanently open, whereas it needs to be more than 50% permanently open. And I'll come back to the visit more recently undertaken in November, where the advice is from the officer that the arrangements...
Sorry, I was just looking for a yes or no answer.
Okay, yeah, just very briefly then.
Right.
Just turning to the visit in November, that the arrangements are substantially the same.
Councillors, any clarifications on what has been presented? No?
Okay, thank you for that. Right, we now move on to responsibility, other parties and witnesses. Right, I'll start off first. Unfortunately, I've told Councillor Richard Mills is not able to be present, but he has sent representation. Which page is that? 93. Thank you. So that's on page 93, so that will be noted. Right, we have Deborah Craig, or she's appointed Tom Craig. Is he here? Please, sir, come up. Once again, toggle on, toggle off when you're ready.
Just as a local resident, I would just like to state that because the substantial noise element coming from the back of the pub, basically the structure that the chap over there has mentioned is not soundproofed, and therefore the very loud music that we hear at through the evening and into the night is disruptive to local residents, ourselves and other people that may want to come here today and say anything. Also, the nuisance by the amount of people leaving of a night time can be very, very disruptive because of the short amount of car parking spaces. There are various cars being moved to and fro, causing often causing traffic and noise nuisance with people hooting their hooters and the like. That is very disruptive for the residents. Also, because they've moved some bins outside the premises rather than out to the rear of the premises where they used to be when the pub was in previous hands, they empty in glass bottles through the evening and into the night, shunting these glass bottles into the bigger glass bank bottle or bin banks, which makes a hell of a racket. And this happens several times through the evening and into the 10, 11 o'clock at night, which I think is very, well, I don't think it's very fair on the residents that live there that they should do that. Surely if the bins were out the back where they should be, not in public open spaces where they're likely to be, well, they could get kicked into the road if there's a public nuisance outside. All sorts of things could happen to these bins. They should be in a secure spot somewhere else rather than to the side of the road where they are.
Sorry,
No.
carry on. While you're making the point,
it.
I'll get some legal advice.
No, that's fine. I don't know about legal advice myself, but I don't think you should have glass bottle waste bins to the side of the road where they can be quite easily, well, obstructive to passers-by, surely, and open to people even getting glass bottles out and using them as weapons if another fight broke out there. I don't know about that, so I don't really think. But the fighting and the nuisance value outside, the residents are being put in an unfair situation with the amount of people coming out and shouting and hollering while they're waiting for their Ubers and their minicabs of the night time, which is basically our concerns. And the fight that broke out a few months ago, or wherever it was that the other councillor chap said about, is not conducive with the area that we live in, really, and it's not what the neighbours and the residents would like to see there, basically.
Thank you very much for that. Roughly in distance in metres, how far do you live from...
50, 60 metres away.
That's 56 metres, right. Okay, there's other... On page, I don't know whether you've got the information pack. Have you got the information pack? Can we get the information pack?
Is this it?
If you open to page 99. So we're looking at pages 99, 100, 101 and 102. Could you explain what these noise record forms, what these are?
The playing of loud music. Well, I think that speaks for itself. It's extremely loud, the music, and because the structure that it's being played in is not soundproof and is partially open, the sound travels extreme distances, which if it was in an enclosed area, like inside the actual pub itself, walled, bricked area, the sound wouldn't be so obtrusive to neighbours. Okay, if you go into page 100, I'm interested in the entries that you have recorded here. On the 1st of the 11th, 19, it says 2:30 a.m. woken up by loud, noisy people standing outside pub, blue flashing lights. So that's the following morning, was it? 2:30? 2:30 a.m. Yes, the following morning. At 2:30 a.m. is the night time.
Okay, and on the 3rd of the 11th, on page 102, this is just for make sure I've got it absolutely clear. You've got the 2nd of 11th, 3rd of 11th, 5th of 11th, and going down to 11th.
It's more of the emptying the glass bottles.
All about emptying glass bottles.
It's a constant thing. It's happening every single night, and it happens more than once at the night time.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any clarifications on what's been presented? Councillor Gardner.
Mr. Craig, where you say about the bins, are you talking about? Are you talking about by the side of Hillingdon Road, where they look like lavatory windows? Is that the area you're talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly where the bins are.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Mr. Ian Dumate? Is he present? No? Okay. Right. Okay, so it's PC Butler.
Just to clarify, Chair, he was a witness for the licensing authority. He's not party to it. It was only to clarify details of the 8th of August. And similar, Stephen Dormer as well, Chair.
Okay,
Sorry, I should have said that.
Okay, maybe we can, if there are any questions, then we can do that in the
one we have. Make sure I get it right. Our discussion stage. Right, we move on to the licence holder representatives. Whoever wants to speak first. Thank you.
Can I do that? Can I apologise for not being here when you came in? And the reason for that was that I was taking last-minute instructions from those witnesses that have come here to support. And can I just turn my back on you and ask, with a show of hands, an identification of which people here are in favour of Sahara City? If you could just raise your hand. Lest it be thought that all these people are against Sahara City. Can I reassure that I'm only going to be calling 3?
I'll allow a little leeway on that. We don't normally do it by show. I understand which point you're making. Okay, that's taken on board, and we know what weighting to give on that appropriately.
Thank you. It may be that, and clearly you've read these papers in great detail, and that comes as a relief to me because it means that I can take this at speed. But it may be that on your first reading, you had the same sensations that I did, and that was, oh my goodness me, this is a hopeless case. They can't even put up the blue notice. And certainly that was the impression that I had gained on my reading of the papers. When I saw Mr. Abu Zaid in conference, I have to say that my mind was changed, and I'm going to explain why my mind was changed, because it isn't quite as bleak as Mr. Ferrer has painted it. And I know that he'll forgive me, but in his enthusiasm to present the case, he's fallen into error in a number of details, and I want to deal with those just very quickly. Can I deal with the blue notice? That's probably the easiest point to deal with, because the suggestion is that it was put up on the 17th of October and was then taken down. It was put up on a side door of the premises. If I hold up my plan here, and I'm going to put it with the car park at the top, which are not. I'm going to put it with the car park at the top that way. The door, which was had the notice affixed to it, was that one on the right-hand side there. Now, there it stayed in place from the 17th of October.
Sorry, could you just circle it, which one you're talking about, and
Yes.
then just pass it over to us so we can have a look to make sure we're exactly, transparent on where this was.
So that's where it went, where it was posted by the officer on the 17th of October, and there it remained until there was a cleaning of the windows at the premises, and the notice came down. Now, it was down briefly, and it was then moved to a location in the front window, easily seen by members of the public passing by. And what...
Sorry, I don't normally interrupt, but would that be on the, where it says kitchen or the entrance?
You'll see my circle bit there.
Yeah, I can see your circle, yeah.
Immediately next to that is a bow-fronted window.
Right.
It's there
Right,
that it was
okay.
put up. So just
Do you see
immediately
that?
next door to it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And there it remained. Now, what the officers have done is continued to take photographs, and that's what you see in the agenda pack right at the back there, 109 and 111 and all those. They continue to take photographs of the door where the notice used to be, but have not taken any photographs of the window where the notice was and continued to be for that continuous period of 28 days. Now, if you go to Agenda Pack 1, so this is the first of the addendums, and go to page 59 there. If you go to page 59, you'll see date stamped at the bottom. These are taken from CCTV footage, and I'll come to CCTV and in its presence at the premises now. Page 59, look at the date at the bottom. There's the notice on the front door, on the side door, the public bar, and it was there at 11:30 in the morning on the 27th. It was there, if you turn over the page, on the 29th, and it was there on the 1st of November on page 61. And then, shortly thereafter, it was moved to its location in the front bay window that I pointed out. And you'll see that on page 62. Date stamp there, 4th of November. We haven't obviously given you every single day that it was up. But this is a snapshot, just to reassure you that Mr. Abuzaid was not attempting to flout any will of the council officers. And then just finally there, on the 12th of November, at 5:15, there it is again. Just so that you don't get the wrong impression. Because it is one of those things that leaps out of the page at you, and you think, well, there we go. There, he's thumbing his nose at the licensing officers, thumbing his nose at the committee, and not even putting up the blue notice. It's nonsense. And I simply wanted to make that clear. And there are a number of other errors which need amending. And it may be that it's Mr. Ferrer's enthusiasm that has been the author of that. I mean, just by way of example, the 8th of November, the 8th of August, with the incident that took place there. Now, these premises used to be what I'm going to call a robust public house, and you know precisely what I mean by that. It was frequented by persons that came to the premises primarily to drink. They were persons who behaved badly. There were live bands at the premises, and they caused, according to at least two of the witnesses I will call, no end of problems. And there were fights on a regular basis. This is the only fight that is recorded in respect to these premises, and I'm going to position it as a one-off. They took a booking for 30 people for a wake. They had no idea at the time they took the booking that it was to be a group of travellers who used to frequent these premises long ago when the premises were badly run. And they turn up, and there's very little one can do. There was a doorman there, despite what Mr. Ferrer will urge upon you. There was a doorman there, but quite frankly, they were just overwhelmed by the position. They turn up drunk, they have a fight, and the question is what to do about it. Now, I have to say this, that Mr. Abuzaid is adamant that he called the police. Mr. Ferrer says that he called the ambulance service. He didn't. He called the police. And that's the correct thing to do in these circumstances. Now, Mr. Ferrer said this, that there was evidence that they had small bottles of alcohol that they were serving to underage people at the premises. That may be just enthusiasm on Mr. Ferrer's part, but I'm afraid it's incorrect, and I don't want you to leave this hearing with an incorrect impression of what the police were actually saying. If you turn to page 43, no, let's go to 45, 44 first of all, because that's the way that Mr. Ferrer did it, with Aisha Razak's statement. If you go about 8 lines up from the second paragraph. There was, however, one individual that was particularly obstructive towards police and was refusing to leave. This was a male who appeared to be younger than 18 to myself and all other officers that attended the incident, and he continually was telling us all that he was below the age of 18 and had been underage drinking. Now, what he doesn't say, and what she doesn't say, is, I have been underage drinking at the premises. Now, just take that forward, if you will, and combine it with the statement of the police licensing enforcement officer on the page prior to that, on page 43. 3 paragraphs down, police officers on the scene report that there was no security, there was one doorman, or provision to deal with such a large aggressive party. And they noticed that there were several little bottles of alcohol, vodka, around the venue, suggesting people had bought in their own alcohol. It's not fair of Mr. Ferrer, and I'm afraid it's incorrect of Mr. Ferrer to say that we had been serving underage alcohol to underage persons by way of miniature bottles. All of the evidence points to one man who, in the view of the police officer, was under the age of 18, that was drunk and obstructive, and it appears that what that person had done was brought his own alcohol to the premises. That's certainly the view of the police. However, Mr. Ferrer wants to position it for this committee. Be that as it may, the incident happened extremely quickly, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, and perhaps it might have been done differently. Perhaps you might have refused the reservation in the first place. But there it is. And as often happens with members of the travelling community, they don't want to identify the persons that perpetrated the assault. They're a closed community. They won't assist the police, and certainly weren't assisting us. So that brings me to the CCTV. Mr. Ferrer thunders that there was no CCTV at the premises. Well, that's right. It wasn't a condition on the licence then that the premises have to maintain a CCTV system. If you look at the licence itself, which is at page 34 onwards, just take it from me, there is no condition on there that requires Mr. Abu Zaid to have CCTV. Nevertheless, he had CCTV at the premises. What wasn't known at the time was that the CCTV system was not working. It was only when there was an attempt to play back the footage that it was realised that it wasn't working. Now, look at the dates. They're very important. So, incident happens on the 8th of August. When it's realised that the CCTV system is not working, the very next day, if you go to Addendum 1, page 30, the very next day, Mr. Abu Zaid instructs a company to install.
What page is that?
Page 30, in Addendum 1. So he has it repaired the very next day. It's not a requirement of his licence that CCTV be on there, and I didn't want you to come away from this hearing or in deliberation thinking that that is the case and that in some way we deliberately flouted an investigation. We haven't. So does one see the clouds beginning to part?
Sorry.
Of course.
Right, could we just adjourn for
of course.
a few minutes? Yeah, thank you. If you'd like to stay in your places, that'd be good. Thank you. Right. If you'd like to continue with your representation, please. Well, if you want to continue on his behalf, Mr. Penshall.
So what I was attempting to do was explain the sensations that went through my mind when, first of all, my arms were folded and I thought that I had one of those cases that was hopeless. And then the explanations that were given by a thoughtful Mr. Abu Zaid about what his position is. Now, I have to say this, that, no, where was I? We went to the CCTV. I was then going to go on to the council officers and the way that they've approached this. And I'm going to flag this up right from the very outset. There is no criticism whatsoever of the council officers and the way that they've gone about their business. They've done exactly what they should have done, and they have done a stepped approach. But the impression that you may be left with, because of the positioning by Mr. Ferrer, is that Mr. Abu Zaid simply ignored the instructions that he was given. He did not. And I'm going to indicate the sorts of works and improvements that he's done to the premises by way of illustration. Because you get two sorts of licensees in a case like this. You get one that simply thumbs his nose at the committee, couldn't care less, and then falls on his knees when his application is brought in for review. And another one who quietly and carefully explains what his position is. Now, you picked up the word aggressive, which was used by Mr. Ferrer in his, or was it hostile? It was one of those two words.
I don't recall saying.
It's not part of the discussion. This is representation. It's not question and answers. Just carry on, please, sir.
Can I indicate the only evidence that we have of Mr. Abu Zaid's demeanour, which is contained in the statement of Peter Rudd, Mr. Darius appearing on his behalf today. The statement of Peter Rudd says this at page 89. It's difficult to see the page. So in the main bundle, page 89. So you will see 3 paragraphs down. This is the only reference to the demeanour of Mr. Abu Zaid. Mr. Abu Zaid insisted that the shelters now complied with the law. I observed that alterations may have been made, but that the work done had not made the shelters compliant with smoke-free. Mr. Abu Zaid was getting very frustrated as I spoke to him. That's it. That's the high water mark. Now, obviously there's some background to this. But planning to an extent is very slightly relevant. I'm going to mention it because it's important that you understand the full background. The shelter in the rear garden used to be an entirely different construction, and the council brought enforcement proceedings against Mr. Abu Zaid for 2 reasons. The first reason was that they said that the smoking of shisha and other tobacco outside somehow changed the use of the premises, and they wanted an injunction to prevent them using the premises for shisha outside. And then the second related to the structure itself, which they said required planning permission. And then there was a long, lengthy procedure. The initial enforcement notice was, if I can just look at my notes, on the 8th forgive me, it's mentioned in the document relating to the planning appeal. Page 40. Yes, it's page 40. So the initial enforcement notice was issued on the 8th of September 2017. I say it for this reason, because council officers aren't always right. The view that the council officers took was that the use that you're putting this garden to changes the use of the premises, and you require planning permission for that. And the enforcement notice was granted, and Mr. Abu Zaid appealed that. And the planning inspector said, no, you're right, Mr. Abu Zaid. The use of the garden for the smoking of shisha doesn't change its use. It's an ancillary use. And the details of his decision you find at page 43. So the appeal succeeds in relation to that aspect of the enforcement notice. But he didn't agree that the structure did not require planning permission. So we had to get planning permission. We had to demolish the structure and erect a new structure. So what you see now is a new structure consequent upon the decision of the planning inspector, which came out in August 2018. Now, the dispute that the council officers were having with Mr. Abu Zaid related to whether it was substantially enclosed or not. And an important factor in calculating whether something is substantially enclosed or not is whether it has the ability to close off those open bits. So can I just illustrate what it looks like by asking you to look at Addendum 2. No, is it Addendum 2? Yes. There's a better example if you go to Addendum 1. I'm sorry for all these different addendums. So I'm going to look at, there's no page numbers on these.
Yep.
All right. If you go then to the photographs, which you'll find in Addendum 1, and it'll be page 45, if you turn to that, and the photographs are all after page 45. And essentially, what you have is a structure which is open on all sides and is divorced from the main structure of the public house. The reason that council officers continue to say, well, no, this is a smoke-free zone, is because up until the time that these photographs were taken, there were roller blinds that could come down over the outside and over the sides of the premises. Although, as a matter of fact, these roller blinds were never brought down. So it was always open to the elements. So technically, the officer is absolutely right. Technically, he's able to say, well, that isn't 50% enclosed, or it's more than 50% enclosed, because you have the capability, even though you're not doing it, you have the capability of rolling these shutter blinds down. It's a tiresome point, I know, and I hope that you'll forgive me for taking it. But what you're presented with is a suggestion that what Mr. Abu Zaid has done has flouted the Health and Safety Act. He has not. Yes, there's a technical offence, because technically those roller blinds could be brought down. But if any prosecution was brought, I or whoever represented Mr. Abu Zaid would be saying, well, for goodness sake, the spirit of the Act has been complied with. Those roller blinds were never, in fact, brought down. There's been no compliance visit to the premises that's ever witnessed those roller blinds being brought down. And would you please absolutely discharge my client, because there has been effectively no flouting of the will of the Act. What the Act was designed to prevent, and that was enclosed smoking, has not, as a matter of fact, taken place. So by all means, yes, speak about enforcement proceedings and such like. But I hope that when they are considering doing that, they would consider what the likely outcome of that would be. So what else then has caused me to change my mind? The use of the garden outside. This is an interesting point. The old plan of the premises, which you'll see at page 20. No, what was it? Page 40. Page 40. So the old plan of the premises speaks about a patio area, small patio area, to the rear of the premises. Now, the condition relating to that small patio area you'll find a few pages earlier on page 39. The small patio area to the rear of the premises shall cease trading at 2300 hours. Now, the insistence of Mr. Ferrer that that structure in the outside of the premises has to be included in the plan. It should have been included in the plan, and because it's not included in the plan, some form of offence has taken place. I'm afraid that submission entirely ignores what the DCMS guidance says. The DCMS guidance on beer gardens, and this is an historic beer garden, doesn't require a beer garden to be included within the ambit of the licensed area. And there are some councils that insist that it should be included, some that don't.
Sorry, I can multitask, even for a chairman.
I wish
I can listen and I can speak. Yeah,
all right. So what the DCMS guidance says, well, if you've got a bar in a garden that is serving drink, then yes, that should be included within the licensed area. So there was no requirement, there is no requirement for Mr. Abu Zaid to include that shelter in any plan that's before the committee. But for the sake of convenience, we're happy to agree to include that shelter within the licensed area. But I don't want you to think that in some way some offence has been created by Mr. Abu Zaid for not including the shelter in the first place. He doesn't have to. And as regards the use of that outside area, there is no condition at the moment that requires the shelter to cease trading at 11 o'clock. That requirement only relates to the small patio, not to the shelter which rests on a parcel of land which is divorced from the small patio area. So he's right on that. The consumption of alcohol is not a licensable activity. If you or I go to these premises and we purchase some alcohol and we take it off the premises into the garden and sit in that shelter, we're entitled to do that, and we're entitled to do that until the premises actually close. Us consuming the alcohol is not an offence. The regulated entertainment or the licensable activity is the actual sale of alcohol. So there's nothing to prevent people being out in the garden after 11 o'clock with a drink. Where he is wrong is the provision of hot food outside in that garden area after 11 o'clock. And he's going to have to hold his hands up to that, because the licensable activity talks about the provision of hot food after 11 o'clock. It doesn't relate to sale. The belly dancing, for example, some suggestion that there was unlicensed dancing taking place at the premises. It's questionable whether the belly dancer, who would appear on Fridays and Saturday nights before 9 o'clock for a short 15-minute slot, whether that was an activity which required licensing, whether it took place inside or outside the premises. And if Mr. Ferrer wants to look at enforcement proceedings for unregulated licensable activities, then that's a matter for him, but he may want to consider long and hard before any prosecution is brought for doing that. In any event, we've stopped the belly dancer being outside. There are a number of things that we've stopped doing as a result of these helpful interventions from council officers. So we have stopped, for example, there are speakers in the sheltered area. If that is causing a noise nuisance, then we shall remove them and no longer use them. The question of the bottles, and one understands entirely the unhappiness of residents in relation to the disposal of bottles. And indeed, when I've questioned some of my residents who've come to support me, that was raised by one of the witnesses who sadly has made her apologies but has to leave and has left. It was the lady in the wheelchair who was Jennifer Lindsay, who comes from a set of premises. She lives almost immediately next door to the public house. So when you're considering Mr. Ferrer's application and the imposition of conditions of the ban, perhaps at page 25 you want to add a condition 18 that there shall be no disposal outside the premises of glass bottles except between the hours of 12 noon and 5 p.m. because that's what he presently does and will continue to do even if you don't impose it as a condition. I say this because it's an example of another measure that Mr. Abu Zaid has taken in order to make life for residents rather more palatable. Deborah Craig talks about food smells. And you remember that Mr. Ferrer, using the expression time and time again, he said, if you look at page 45, these are the lists of complaints that have been received by the council.
That'll be page 45.
Page 45. You'll notice that there was one complaint over 2 years ago in relation to cooking smells. Nobody else has made any complaints. None of the residents that you'll hear from today, none of the residents that you'll hear from have suffered any complaint in relation to cooking smells. Nevertheless, it may be that a fix was required, and it may be that it was something as simple as having the kitchen duct overhauled completely. And if you go to Addendum 1, and turn to page 35, Deep Clean Restaurant Limited deeply cleaned the premises of Sahara City in the kitchen And the kitchen extraction fan unit connecting ducting has been cleaned and degreased from all available exit points back to bare metal at this establishment. And that is done and will be done on a contract, if you turn over the page, that requires that to be done every 6 months. Now, it may be that it was something as simple as that which caused Deborah Craig to be sensitive to the smells of food. What we do know is that nobody else has suffered this, and what we do know is that nobody has complained to the council about it for over 2 years. Do you see how certainly the clouds might be beginning to part, and that it isn't quite as bad as it sounds? In relation to the question of noise escape, can you keep a finger in page 45 in the main bundle, and then look at addendum 1 again, and then turn up, if you will, page 33. So look at the chronology. You've got Mr. Lloyd writing a letter to Sahara City on the 16th of August saying that there's a problem with loud amplified music. If you then turn, remember this is before any application for review has gone in. You turn over the page, you'll see measures that have been proposed by Mr. Gackle from Future Audio Visual, and he said this, that he will install 2 additional speakers so that the area has better coverage, allowing the user to turn down overall volume levels without losing coverage. Secondly, speakers have been repositioned to minimize sound bleeding outside the venue. And thirdly, a professional sound limit warning system has been installed, allowing users to accurately measure dB levels and keep volume set to correct level. So it's bizarre, this, but if you increase the number of speakers, you decrease the volume of the sound because you're spreading it over a larger area and you can therefore turn it down. You need to reposition the speakers, and that's been done, and you need to install a limiter, and that's been done. Now, again, remembering that this was done on the 12th of September, and remembering, of course, that Mr. Lloyd's letter was dated the 16th of August, turn back to the list of complaints that the council has received. And look at this. They stop at the 24th of August. So it may well be that we managed to crack it on the head. It may well be that the measures that we've installed by way of noise limiter and repositioning of speakers has solved it. I hope that that is the case. And then what about the residents then? Because it's disappointing sometimes when one has a case where there's a large number of residents filling the back of a council chamber who were all dead against a set of premises. It's very rare that one has a room full of people who are actually here physically supporting Mr. Abu Zaid and what he's done at these premises. Extremely rare. Imagine if it was the other way around. Imagine that I could only produce 2 people who were making representations in favour of me, but there were some 30 people who were against me. Imagine how easy it would be for you to come to a decision that something very wrong is going on here. And this is what troubles me. We have contained in our bundle, we've got a petition, and we've got a number of letters that are pro forma letters. I accept that entirely. Save for one, and that is the letter of Mrs. Bayon, or Bayou, on page 27. Now, without exception, although they've been redacted in your bundles, they've not been redacted. I have the originals. They are all local residents. If you turn to page 28, which is the map of the area, and if I was going to put a cross or a dot on those that are supporting me, on those houses, I'd be able to go the whole way down Harlington Road on this plan and say that every single person on Harlington Road is in favour. If you look across on the other side of the road to Coney Grove, now we know that Mr. Diamond, who doesn't appear today, and Mrs. Craig live there. But by the same token, and I'm about to do it, I've got witnesses that live immediately opposite these premises that say that doesn't happen. Now, the interesting thing about Mr. Diamond is contained in the letter of Mrs. Bayou, and I'm going to ask you to read that again in full.
Could you give us the page numbers?
Page 27 on Addendum 1. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter to you regarding the Sahara City, Prince of Wales. I live directly across the road from this restaurant, about 5 metres across the Harlington Road. I was asked to sign a letter to complain about noise nuisance. I declined. Now, look at the letter. It's over the page. You'll see it page 29. 28 and 29. Ian is Ian Diamond. And Wendy is Mrs. Bayou. And Wendy, along with every other resident of Harlington Road, was asked to sign this letter objecting to the premises and supporting Mr. Diamond, and then to post it through Mr. Diamond's letterbox. And you'll see the instructions to her. Please sign and put through my letterbox. Thanks, Ian. But Wendy wouldn't do that because she didn't believe its contents and does not support what Mr. Diamond says. I declined because I do not hear any noise, nor has anyone been a nuisance. The properties directly opposite the restaurant are all triple glazed due to the fact that we live so close to the main road leading to Uxbridge, so we don't hear much noise at all. When the Prince of Wales was a public house, we used to get much more noise due to the live bands, drunks and drug dealers that were always hanging around. The bands played until gone midnight, and drug dealers used to come across to Coney Grove. I'm only too grateful that the Prince of Wales has opened as a restaurant and shisha bar. Now, that was the moment that my mind changed completely, because far from getting a united front, as one normally does, invariably in cases such as these, you've got many more residents for these premises than against. I'm not saying it's a question of numbers. I'm realistic. But it takes quite an effort for people to take time off work, to appear in front of you on a day hearing. And I hope that you're going to acknowledge that that is so. They're here for a reason, and they're here because they support Sahara City and what Sahara City has done. And they're here to say, quite frankly, we are not disturbed by it. Mr. Darius attempted at one stage to say this, that, it's likely that smoke could emit from the rear of the premises and impact upon people living nearby. Not one person has indicated that that is the case. If we go through every single piece of evidence here, in the voluminous bundles that we've got, there's not one single person complaining about the emission of smoke. And the reason for that, as you identified, sir, through your questions, is that residents, so far as smoke is concerned, live some distance away. So what is the position? But what I can say is that the premises are so much better than they were. They're not perfect, and we acknowledge that some conditions have to be imposed on the premises. And I'm simply going to indicate broadly that we are entirely in agreement that these conditions replace the rather woolly conditions that are currently on the licence. So coming then to the conditions, the DPS, the application has been made. There is a deemed change of DPS that's already in place. It's unlikely that the police are going to make representations against Mr. Menshawi, but that's always a possibility. But there we go. The application has been put in, and that was put in before today's date. So dealing with the conditions, page 23, condition 1, absolutely fine. Could you, on condition 3, specify that it should be toughened drinking vessels shall be used in external areas, including the garden and smoking area? Just so that it's perfectly clear what the position is. Just pausing there. The injuries that were inflicted on the victim of the assault on the 8th of August had nothing to do with glass, but I understand that it's a belt and braces thing, and we already do that. We already have personal licence holders. There are 4 personal licence holders at the premise, or is it 3? 3 personal licence holders. And the details of the personal licence holders are included in our addendum bundle 1. If you look at page 66 onwards, 1, 2, 3, there are 4. I thought there were 4. All right, so compliance with condition 8 is perfectly feasible. Now, the only condition that we have slight concerns over is in relation to the use of the outside area. Now, we put in an application to vary, but Mr. Ferrer enthusiastically attempts to read our application for a minor variation as something sinister, knowing that if we applied for a full variation, that in some way we'd have to have a full hearing, and that we wanted to avoid that. There's nothing sinister in applying for a minor variation. The council says apply for a variation. We apply for a variation, and then the council officers refuse it. There we go. That's what happened. But there's no magic in whether we apply for a minor variation or a major variation. The minor variation relates only to the layout internally of the bar, and that fits fairly and squarely within the ambit of what is and what is not a minor variation. And then, because the council officers had been saying for some time that we ought to include the structure, then we applied to include the structure as well. And there we go. We were simply complying with what officers asked us to do. In any event, we are able to use this hearing as an opportunity to include that outside area on this new plan, and we welcome that. But the question is what to do in relation to that outside area. Now, Mr. Ferrer says this on his condition 11. No customers shall be allowed to use the external garden area of the premises after 2100 hours, Sunday to Thursday, and 2200 hours, Fridays and Saturdays. The smoking area shall be limited to a maximum of 10 persons. Now, it's unclear what that means when he's talking about a smoking area, because we say this: that it's perfectly possible to license that outside area for hours equivalent to the inside area, in view of the fact that we're able to show, through the witnesses that we've got and supporting evidence, that there is no adverse impact upon the residents through the use of that garden. So this is the way that we leave it. We say, quite frankly, 9 o'clock in the evening is far too early during the week. 10 o'clock is far too early. Could we please have as late a time as you feel is appropriate? But not to restrict those persons who were outside in the shelter to 10 persons. Because if you do that, you kill the business immediately. I mean, whether one approves of shisha smoking or not, people do it. It's a pleasant thing for them to do. It allows them to socialise and swap gossip and the rest of it. And if you're talking in low voices, outside, in an area where there aren't any speakers, there's no music coming from that outside, and that, I have to say, is a new measure that we've introduced. Up until fairly recently, there were speakers in the outside shelter, and those have been removed. But if you've got people simply speaking, there's no entertainment there, there's nothing to excite them, there's no music over which they have to shout, what is the harm in allowing these premises to continue to operate with hours which are the equivalent of the inside? But I leave that entirely up to your committee, but please, 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock is far, far too early. I'm conscious of the fact that I have gone on far too long. Oh yes, and then add on to the conditions, condition 18, which is the glass bottles condition. No emptying of glass bottles into containers outside outside the hours of 12, midday and 5 o'clock. Now, having said all of that, and knowing that we have an eye slightly on the clock, I'm just going to call a representative selection, if I may. They're not going to repeat each other.
If you would do your submission, then if there's any clarifications from the committee, we'll ask you about what you have presented, and then they'll have their...
Sensible. So that's my submission.
Thank you very much for that. First of all, I'd like to start off with, your beginning that you said when you read it, you was horrified, or I'm not quite sure the exact words you used. I've been on the licence committee for quite a few years. I've never come across any application review which I am shocked by. It's a submission pack. We read it, we go through it, we then have a hearing, and then we deliberate and we make a decision only after all that process has followed. So I want to make that very clear.
Can I just respond to that?
No.
I don't think I used the word horrified.
Let me just finish. I'm just saying. I understand what you're saying, but we have a very balanced view of this. So please have the confidence that we balance everything and we put the appropriate weighting on everything. Even I am very relaxed sometimes. I even allow people to say things which have absolutely no bearing on licenses, like the planning. I did let you have that. It could have been straight away, no, it's not part of the remit, it's not part of the licensing objectives, so I don't want to hear about it, but we do. Right, okay, let me just fly into the blue notices. So we have the pictures that you provided with the dates. These are just for clarifications. So those photos are from your CCTV footage. Thank you. Right. Are small bottles sold in, because you mentioned about small bottles, are these sold on the premises?
They are not. They, according to the evidence of the police, were brought to
Right, these roller blinds, you mentioned roller blinds, and technically correct about the 50-50. Are these roller blinds still, are they still on the structure?
They have been removed.
And when were they removed?
3 days ago, after they saw me in conference.
Could you give me a date, please?
which was Friday, last Friday.
I'm afraid I look at it.
Thursday.
Was it Thursday?
Thursday.
Thank you. Thursday? Any more offers? Thursday, Friday?
Thursday.
Thursday, so that'd be the 28th. Okay. Of,
Thursday the 28th of November.
thank you, sir.
That evening.
Okay. You mentioned the small patio area. Could you tell me what size, in terms of footage, we're talking about?
By 6.
3 meters by 6
By
meters.
6 meters.
So that will be 9 feet in old money by 9 feet by 18 feet.
I took it by the meter. 3 by 6.
Okay, could you tell me the size of your indoor seating? What that size is?
Inside the pub?
Yes, inside the restaurant.
Yeah.
What's the area there?
Let me put it another way. Make it a bit easier. What's the seating capacity internally?
Inside 60.
And what's the seating capacity in this small patio area?
Small patio areas only 3 and 2, and another 2 and 3 is around 7 in total.
Is that 7 people?
Yeah.
So you
7
seven-
seats. Yeah. 7 seats.
Can we be absolutely clear on this, please?
Yeah.
You're saying you have a seating area of 60 within the licensed premises.
This is inside.
Right, okay. Now I'm talking about outside, the patio area. How many people can sit in that area in one?
7 seats.
7 seats.
In a small patio.
That's the
Not in the
not in the shelter. So, right, just for clarification, page 81, this on our A3, this area here, this outside area.
Yeah.
Could you tell me how many people can sit, whether it's in a patio area, outside? So outside the actual. So when you come outside these doors.
Yeah.
How many people
in the
seating area, the whole of that area? Yeah. Could you tell me how many people can be seated?
In total, in full capacity is around 40 to 45 maximum.
Thank you. And what could you tell me what happens after? I wasn't quite clear.
Sure.
Could you tell me what happens after 11 o'clock in this area?
After 11 o'clock, these people, our kitchen is closing 10:30. There is nobody ask for food after 10:30. The people sit down, smoking, drinking. That's it. After 11.
And until what time do they do this? If you go through every single day, say is Monday to Thursday as one group, Sunday to Thursday as one batch, and Friday and Saturday, please.
And our license is from Sunday.
I'm asking what they do. I'm aware of your licenses.
Yes.
I'm asking what happens after 11 o'clock on these days. Let's start with, shall we go by day?
Yeah, sure.
Right, Sunday.
Sunday finish early, around 10 o'clock, because people leave early, start early, and finish early.
Okay, Monday to Thursday, we'll do it as a block.
11 o'clock, nobody leave early as well.
Saturday? Sorry, Friday, Saturday?
Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, sir.
And Friday, 12 o'clock.
So, just so I'm absolutely clear, the committee is clear. So what you're saying is, between Sunday, 10 o'clock, there's nobody outside. Monday to Thursday, 11 o'clock is the last time somebody's outside. And on Friday and Saturday, 12 o'clock, there's nobody outside.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Noise. It was mentioned by your representative about noise, and you've now, I think maybe your representative will answer this. You are offering two conditions in addition to what the responsible authority, licensed authority has suggested. So, just so I'm clear on this, you're offering for bottle deposits bottle disposal from 12 to 5 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. You are also offering, as an additional condition, no speakers in the outside area. Am I correct?
We can do that, yes.
No, is that the offer?
That is the offer, but
okay.
we currently don't have them.
Okay. I'm just asking what you're offering. That's all. What else did you ask for? You asked for toughened vessels to put on point 3.
Simply, yes.
Toughened
drinking vessels.
Okay. I just want to make sure we got all that.
Was a planning permission required?
Do you? Okay, I'm done. Councillors, Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, I wonder if you can help me. I've got one query. You said that on the 9th of August that the gentleman called the police himself.
8th of August,
yes. The London Ambulance Service did. If he called the police, surely he would have been given a CAD number. Have you got the CAD number?
We have the CAD number. We've asked for it. We've had a look at it. And I have to say that there is no reference there to anybody at the premises calling the police. That doesn't mean that the call wasn't made. But it's a mystery.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Did you just say that you'd removed all the speakers from the sheltered area?
Yes.
You have? Right, okay. But in your conditions, item 12, all speakers within the smoking area outside the premises shall shut off at 2100 hours.
That's what Mr. Ferrer wants. I'm happy that there should be no speakers outside.
That's lovely, thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you. Right. Now we move on to the licence holder witnesses, as I said.
Can I do that very quickly? I'm just going to call... Janet Davis and Errol Edgell, please. If you can come together. These are husband and wife. Now, you, Mrs. Davis, you've been at the...
Sorry, who is... We got Janet Davis... Right, the only person who's allowed to speak is obviously whoever's on the list. Did they? Okay, sorry, carry on. And just to remind you, when you do speak, if you would toggle on, toggle off, please. Thank you. You'll see it light up. It goes a red colour. Thank you.
All right, now listen, how long have you two lived at your address?
We've lived there for 11 years.
And just to make it clear, you're number 8, Coney Grove.
Yeah.
And if we look at our map of the premises, you haven't got the bundle. Yes, you have got the bundle there.
Oh, is this it? Yeah.
Page 28. The bundle there.
That one?
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah, the map.
So let's look at the map. I'm holding my map up and angling it towards you. The black dot at the top right is the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
Was the Prince of Wales, now Sir Harris City. Immediately on the other side of the road is Koenig Road.
Yeah.
And you're number 8 Koenig Road.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Can you help us as to what you can see from your window as
Well,
you look out from your living room?
We're on the street level because we're on the first floor, so someone lives under us and all they can see is the banking. We're on street level and we can see in the winter time the whole of the outside of the front of the pub. We don't see the back of the pub.
All right. And is that the same for your bedroom as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
And without being personal, do you mind telling me what sort of time roughly you go to bed?
Oh, it depends.
Oh, it depends. I go to bed very late.
And I go to bed at about 11ish.
Sorry, could
Half
you
10,
address
11?
it to me? Sorry.
Sorry, I go to bed very late. Janet, she
Yeah.
goes earlier than me.
Right. So you're in bed by 11. Can you help me with what the Prince of Wales used to be like? Because we've had you there for 11 years. You've seen the Prince of Wales and you've seen Sahara City. Any preferences?
Yeah, the Prince of Wales, when it was a pub, it was horrendous. There was police there all the time, fights all the time, noise all the time, live bands. Yeah, you know, going out there like, you know, summertime, walking past, going up to the shop. We used to get racial abuse, you know, because me and Jan going past, and yeah, it wasn't nice at all. And there was a very serious incident out there where we actually had CIDs knocking on our door asking us what did we see, because a man got seriously injured, so serious that he suffered serious brain damage. He almost died. I don't even know if he's alive or not to this day, to be honest with you.
Right, so there comes a stage when Mr. Abu Zaid takes over the premises.
Oh, from when he took over and start doing it up, it took a long time. Must have been nearly a good year to fix it up. But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Have you two been inside?
Oh yeah, on more than one occasion. Even took my family when they come down from Milton Keynes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Did you ever go inside the Prince of Wales?
No. It was a ghetto, a rough thing, rough place.
We were frightened to go in
To be
there.
honest, and because of racial abuse, I don't think I would be welcome. To be honest.
So there you are, Janet. You're in bed. It's 11 o'clock on a Friday or a Saturday night. What can you hear?
Well, nothing to that really, because we've got the reduction glass, then we've got the double glazing, and then like if I've got the TV on in the bedroom, Errol's got the TV on in the living room, we don't really hear anything. It's only one time we see like in the summertime was the blue flashing lights. That must have been the incident in the summertime.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's it.
What is being suggested by two residents is that they hear loud music coming from these premises.
No.
we've not heard that.
We haven't heard no loud music.
No.
No heard no loud
The only
music.
time that we do hear loud music is when cars are waiting at the traffic lights.
Yeah, you know, some.
And they've got the windows
yeah.
open, and we hear the bass because some of their systems are really, really heavy.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Any
that's it.
complaints at all about this?
Sorry, it's just I got sidetracked myself while I was going through the pack again. The representation, if you would just make it to me.
Oh,
without
sorry.
questioning.
Oh, sorry.
If you
Sorry
could-
about that.
That's for the discussion stage.
Okay.
So if you just make your representation
Right.
Yeah.
as witnesses,
Yeah.
Yeah.
say what you have to say,
Right.
and then we can move on.
Okay.
And then, if you have any clarifications of what you have to say,
Yeah.
we as a committee will ask you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then afterwards there's a discussion stage where if anybody can discuss with anybody else, through myself, obviously, and then we can take it forward. So, carry on with your statement, please.
Yeah.
So, any disturbances from loud music, so far as you're concerned?
No disturbances from loud music.
What is proposed is that Mr. Abu Zaid be able to continue using the shelter at the outside of the premises. Can you see that from your window?
No, we can't, because that's on the other side. That's going up more to the Oxbridge Road side. That's where the garden is. But we see the front side and the car park side. So we can see the front entrance, the side entrance, and the
and the entrance to get into the car park.
Right. Any complaints at all about the way that Mr. Abuzaid has been running his premises?
No. Very nice. They're very nice. The restaurant's very nice. It's lovely. No problems. Yeah, they're very good. You know, I'm happy that it's there. To be honest, it's nice. It's a nice addition to the area.
Did you receive any communication from Ian Diamond?
Oh, our next door neighbour. Yeah, he's a bit of a nuisance, to be honest.
We could tell. What happened?
He asked us to sign a petition against the gentleman that owns the Sierra, and we refused. We said no.
And why was that?
Because we didn't see a problem with the Sierra. As far as we're concerned, you know, the man is running a business. It's a nice business. It's a lovely restaurant, and we don't see no harm to try and ruin the man's livelihood.
Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Could you tell me what roughly the distance from the licensed premises is to your home, please?
5-6 meters to walk across. It's like walking from here to where you are.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Walking from about here to it's not that far at all.
Okay, so
just literally across the road.
So you just to confirm, you're number 8.
Yeah.
Is that's a public road, and then it's the public house. Is that right?
Yeah, that's Arlington Road. That's Arlington.
Sorry, let me finish this. On page 28, I will suggest that would be a bit more distance than this, but hey, never mind.
No, a little bit, maybe from...
I get it. No, it's okay. I get it. Okay. Right. And I'm sorry to hear about your previous experiences, for what you said. But just to say, in licensing, we have 4 licensing objectives on which a license's premises has to adhere to. Are you aware of those? Any of those objectives?
Well, no, not really.
Okay, no, we do have 4, and it's quite strict and firm. Unfortunately, business is not one of them. But anyway, thank you for that. Any questions, councillors, clarifications? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. You're free to go if you wish.
That's okay.
Or you can stay. And then finally, Janice Hopper. I'm a witness down. Jennifer Lindsay, the lady in the wheelchair, had to leave earlier, but sent her apologies.
That's due noted.
And Janice, you live at 3 Harlington Road.
Yes, I do.
Sorry, could you just say who you are again? Thank you.
And Janice, you have lived at the premises for how long?
22 years.
All right. So you knew it before when it was the Prince of Wales, and you know it now as Sahara City. Observations?
No, it'd probably be quicker if I just gave a statement rather than you asking the same questions, to be fair. I'm happy to do that if you're okay with that.
Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I've lived there for 22 years. I bought a house next to a pub. There is some noise, but it's not unreasonable. When there has been a few occasions it has been unreasonable, and I've gone next door, I've had a chat with the gentleman next to me, and they fix it. Yeah, occasionally they do, or perhaps previously, more than occasionally, they put bottles in the bin late at night. They don't do any more. You give them feedback, and they fixed it. Trouble outside, you know, it's a main road. We're on the main route to Hillingdon Hospital. There's police flashing lights and ambulance flashing lights 24/7. So it's not unreasonable. My garden backs onto their premises, so I am the closest to their noisy establishment, and it's not that bad. Again, occasionally they put the music up if it's someone's birthday and they foolishly put on a loud happy birthday song. You give them feedback and you say, guys, I can hear this. It is too loud, and you know he's come into my garden, he's listened, and they turn it down. So it's a working premises. You give them feedback, they fix some things. So it's a pub. It's 100 times better than it was before. It is a nice restaurant. I did go into the pub previously 2 or 3 times when my dad came to visit and he insisted on a pint, but it wasn't nice. Now it's great. I take friends there, and it's a much better addition to the local area. There is some noise. It's a working pub. I bought a house. They were there first.
Thank you very much. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you for that. Sounds like a Google review for the restaurant, really. You mentioned that if you mention something, they go and fix it. Have you actually gone round to them, or do they come round to you and say, have you experienced any problems? And just before you answer that, so you live right, going back to the map on page 28, you live on the first house next to the pub. I think you say it's number 3 on there.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. So the question was interaction between the licence holder and yourself.
Yeah, I've got a dog, so the dog gets 3 walks a day, so I walk past the pub 6 times a day, sort of there and back. And yeah, that they engage the guys who kind of look after the car park. That's a lot better. Previously, there was no control of anything. Yes, they have a small car park there, but they also have an additional car park around the corner. I park my car opposite in Coney Grove, and I very, very rarely have any trouble parking.
So the question was about the interaction between yourself and the licence holder.
Yeah, when I walk past...
In terms of any complaints, as you said, if there were issues, not complaints, where you was issues. So do you have sort of regular ones, or do you pop round, or...?
No, when I'm passing, he always asks me how am I, and is everything okay? Is there any problems? If ever the guys have been overzealous and chucked the bottles out the night before, then they've chucked the bottles out at 11 o'clock again. It needs to be before 9, because sometimes you get carried away and you forget when you're in business. It's it's 10 o'clock and I've chucked the bottles away. So you give feedback and he gives them a slap and they get better. At least that's what he says.
Metaphorical slap. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure.
Councillors, any clarifications on that? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
All of the evidence that I was going to call.
Sorry, is that it, yeah?
That's it.
Okay, we're now moving on to the discussion stage. I'm conscious of the time, so what I'm going to propose is a quick sort of 5-6 minute comfort break. Anybody wants to have one, and we leave the cameras on, and then we continue, if that's okay. Because I need to get a coffee. Okay, bye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we can continue now. Like I said, we move on to the discussion stage now. I will kick off. Could PC Butler come to the front? As a witness. Yes. Good afternoon, PC Butler. If you go into the information pack, page 42 and 43.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
It's not signed, so is this your representation? It is yours.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, 2 points. One is you mentioned underage drinking, or was it PC Razak? Could you tell me what additional, any checks were carried out to confirm, or was this just a suspicion that this gentleman was underage?
Mr. Chairman, I can't speak on behalf of that officer who was the initial officer in the case and on scene. However, I believe she does refer in her statement to the individual alleged who was underage. He mentioned that himself to PC Razak.
So the question is no. You don't have any additional checks that were carried out?
No additional checks.
Now, in terms of how many years have you been with the police force?
Sorry, myself or...
Yourself.
28 years policing service.
Okay, just to ask in terms of if somebody has raised a 999 call, would they at every instance have a CAD number? Be given a CAD number?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman. I can explain that if that needs to be done.
Any questions to PC Butler as a witness? Thank you, PC Butler.
Thank you.
If anybody else has any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question from the license holder. How do you pronounce your name? Ahmed. Okay, if you don't mind, I'll call you Mr. Ahmed. Okay. Right. Okay. You mentioned about what your current operating schedule is, which is in the external area, the outside area. Just to confirm, it was Sunday. You close currently at 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, 11 p.m. and Friday, Saturday, 12 p.m. Your current licensing schedule states no activity after 11 o'clock in the patio area. So my question to you is, why is it being used after 11 o'clock?
No, patio area is not never used after 11 o'clock.
You did say to me...
No, I'm talking about the structure. The small patio, the 3 by 6, what I mentioned, this is the one we close it at 11 o'clock, as far as I know from my solicitor for the planning. And say the structure should be get exactly included the same as inside.
Okay, so if it's not the patio area,
yeah,
that patio area that is there, so what activity takes place between 11 and 12 on a Friday and Saturday, excluding the patio area?
Sorry, I didn't get your questions.
I asked you and you answered that you use the outside area until 12 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday. So the question I asked is, what activities take place there between the hours of 11 p.m. till midnight?
The structure for the planning, the one we take the planning for, and the inside.
What happens in here, in the structure? between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock?
Somebody's still there smoking and drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
So I can understand that. So there's drinking and smoking taking out place outside their area until 12 o'clock. Thank you. You mentioned you had door staff present when this disturbance took place. Is this a regular occurrence that you have this?
Yes.
Could you tell me exactly when you have it, how many staff you have it, and on what days you have it?
We have the two for security door and the parking as well. They controlling the parking and the doors outside.
Could you tell me what days and what hours they start work, what hours they finish work?
100% weekend it has to be. And
sorry, Mr. Ahmed, could you be absolutely specific? Sure. What days, what hours they start, what hours do they finish, please?
Saturday and Friday, 7 o'clock, till we finish.
PM?
Yeah. Till 2:30, we finish 2:30.
Sorry, Mr. Panchal, could you switch it off, please? Because I did make that comment at the beginning, to switch off your mobile phones. If it's very urgent, you can leave the room, it's not a problem. Yeah, but not doing it while we're having our discussion stage. Right, we mentioned, it was mentioned in the police report that there were small bottles of alcohol. I know your representative did make the point that you don't sell them. Have you ever sold small bottles? I'm not sure what these small bottles are. I'm assuming, which I shouldn't really do. Sorry, I can go to Daniel. Was these miniature bottles we're talking about?
That's my assumption too, Chair.
Okay, we shouldn't really assume, but
yep.
Do you ever smell small bottles of alcohol, or have you ever sold small bottles of alcohol?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you. You're aware of, I've already mentioned about planning. Planning has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Right, these roller blinds. Now, there's a discussion amongst yourself and the council officers that the 50% is not being adhered to. Okay, whether you agree with it or whether or not, these are professionals. They've come to you with that. And your representative has made the point as well that you don't put these blinds, these roller blinds down. And you've now finally, should I say, taken them away at 28th of the 11th. You've taken these blinds away. Can you confirm they've been removed now?
As my barrister say, we'll move it. We never used it anyway. We just have it in case we need it in the end of the night to close it, to make sure we have television, we have some, material if the raining coming, but we don't use it. Better we take it off, but doesn't close it at all.
Yeah, the question I'm asking, Mr. Ahmed, if it's been pointed out to you that these structures contravene the 50-50.
More than 50.
If you let me just finish, sir. Okay? If you knew, if this was the crux of the problem, the question I ask you is, when the professionals told you, the councillor, why did you not remove them straight away? I mean, I understand what the point that has been made in terms of you listen to people and you take action. I get that, and I've noted all the points that you've done. But if this was the problem, then why did you not remove them straight away? When you've said of your own admission, you don't use them, it's because of the TV, but you never use them. So why would you not just take them away straight away?
I clear this point. First of all, he talking about 2018. 2018 will close in October 2018 because I have problem with the planning and I was sick. I was have a cancer and I'm in treatment. I couldn't come to open the restaurant.
Yeah,
listen to me.
I think your representative would say, regards your health, that's off the record. You mustn't say that. I'm sorry to hear that, but you can't mention health, yeah?
Anyway, I couldn't open the place, and we only redemption the shelter, and I leave it. Till I feel better, I come back. And I build it again. This is different completely. After the visit, he come in 2018. He never come in and measure it and give the size and this in 2019. He just visit personally, and he was rude to me. And I'm trying to explain to him, he doesn't want to listen. Thank you.
Thank you for that. In terms of, there's been representation from a resident about food smells. Could you tell me how your kitchen operates in terms of doors open, doors closed, or something on that lines? I understand you've got the ducting cleared now and you're going to have it done every 6 months. Why wasn't this in place before?
I wish you come in and visit by yourself and see. This is all over attack, and this is not true.
Okay, the complaints about noise. Did you, as a course of action, speak to your neighbours? Ask them, go around knocking on doors, possibly, regards issues, possible issues. I understand there is one resident who spoke that you do speak to. Is it how do you engage with the local community?
We have very good relation, always. Even they passing by, I asking any problem, say no, everything is okay. I go to them and say, please, if you have any issue from us, please let me know. I'm happy to fix it because we need to have good relationship and good neighbor, and we look after neighbor. We're not there to be enemy to anybody.
You're there for business, sir. I understand that.
Thank you.
Do you keep an incident log, sir?
Keep what, sorry?
Do you keep an incident log?
Yes, of course.
Could you tell me what you put into this incident log?
Anything happened, the manager, he write it down. Every time anything happened, they write it down. We have the fire book as well. You have to report everything.
How many entries do you ever had in the last 3 months?
I didn't count them.
What's the normal types of incidents normally reported?
Hopefully 2 or 3 maximum, I don't know, but the manager, he is always the one write it down. But as far as I know, there is no report from the manager we did something, anything happened.
In terms of the DPS, your representative has stated you are now replacing the DPS. Could you tell me a bit more about that, the history of it, and why it's come about?
About what, sorry?
If your representative likes to clarify that, yeah, I think
can clarify that. We saw each other in conference last week. I noted that what was being asked for was a change of DPS. I advised that there should be an immediate application for a change of DPS into the name of Mohammed Menchawi. That was done.
Right. And in terms of the previous DPS, how is he involved in the business, Mr. Ahmed?
Mr. Ahmed was the previous DPS.
It's me. I would like to answer that, if you don't mind. I have
just to make sure. So you've been removed as the DPS.
To make you happy.
Okay.
To make the community or whatever he says.
If you let me just finish, sir.
Sure.
So you've been removed as the DPS, but just to clarify, you are the owner of the business.
Yes.
Are you the sole owner of the business, or is there anybody else?
It's only me.
Okay, thank you. Carry on, ask the question.
Yeah. I have my alcohol license forever because I have it since 1990 with Fulham and Hammersmith. I have my restaurant in Fulham and Hammersmith for 22 years. I am with Hammersmith and Fulham. I never have a point. I am very good. I have thousands of reference. I am straight, good person. I never have any harm of child. Even if the law allow me to harm the child, I never do that because I love child, which is upsetting as well. Secondly, what I see, I'm in the poor management. No, I am not. I'm in the business for quite a long time, and I know exactly what to do and how to deal with people, and I have respect for neighbor, for anybody coming, and I'm not happy for the police report or Mr. Daniel report.
Okay, I think I didn't quite catch the whole gist of that. But so in terms of what involvement will you have in running the premises now that you've been removed as a DPS, you have somebody else there now. The person who you have now is he related to you in any way?
Yes, he's my brother.
Okay, so in terms of what will be your input in the running of this business from
I'm a
today?
director.
In terms, if you could tell me in detail what involvement you will be having in running the business from today.
Director of the business.
I get that.
Yeah.
So what will you be hands-on? Will you be in what hours do you propose to be in the pub? What do you propose in terms of the decision-making process?
I'm there to
maybe if you're sorry, sir. If you once again, if you just let me finish.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. It moves a lot faster.
Sure.
Yeah. As when you're speaking. Yeah. Okay. So maybe your representatives can help you out here, Mr. Pancho, Mr.
Rankin.
Yeah, I've got it written here, Mr. Rankin. Sorry. I can't forget that. Great chef, I know. So if you could help out there in terms of asking what his involvement in the business is going to be.
All
Now
right.
he's not the DPS.
What the chairman needs to know is how often are you going to be at the premises, and what do you do when you go to the premises? In view of the fact that your brother is now the DPS.
Yeah, I managing anything from outside, and I direct the staff for anything wrong to correct it. And I am sleeping even there upstairs right now. 24 hours I'm there.
All right.
Yeah.
But what,
because this is my life. I'm not going to leave it.
I understand.
Yeah.
What duties does your brother have?
He's looking after the alcohol license.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. So he's now the appointed DPS. So he will be running it on licenses matter, but you will be running the day-to-day operations. Am I correct in thinking? Yeah. So should there be any disturbances there? I'm just making up a hypothetical situation. What will be your course of action? That's for you to answer, Mr. Ahmed.
For you to answer.
Oh, sorry.
How often is your brother there?
He's there most of the time,
right.
afternoon until
All right,
every day.
imagine this then.
Yeah.
You're both there.
Yeah.
And there's a problem at the premises. Who sorts it out?
And alcohol he sorted out, and I will be supporting as well.
All right.
So, Mr. Ahmed, if somebody came into your pub and said, listen, I live down the road, you're making a lot of noise, throwing glasses away at 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever, what would be your course of action?
I always go to the staff who is going to put, you have the music controller. I make sure, because the music controller is cut off if going more the level. We measure it. And we don't have any neighbor complaining about the music, at all. Maybe that's only happy birthday. Sometimes say, oh, sorry, please put down, don't put too much when say happy birthday.
How do you manage taxis picking up your customers when you close, say, on Friday, Saturday, so 2 o'clock in the morning? How do you manage that?
We have the security. He guide them, and we have space to park on side and in the front and in the back, and the customer go and take. And the security is always make sure this is going safely and correctly.
Do you have some signage in your premises asking patrons to leave quietly?
Of course, yes.
Because I haven't seen nothing in the information pack. But
we have the red sign. We have the picture. I think I have it in my mobile. If you want to see it.
That's fine. In terms of dealing with sort of antisocial behaviour, your staff, are they sent on any training programs, or do you have any evidence that they are trained to deal with this?
Unfortunately, we are suffering from that because we are a victim of that. If the behavior of some silly, take the blunts out, swearing to us, and say, and thinking we are a foreigner from this country, and I say sorry, and swearing to my staff in front of me, because they take advantage, they don't speak English very well, and I say, excuse me, what did you swearing to him? You know, and they say, one of this silly behaving very badly, we, the one suffering from antisocial behavior. We are affecting from antisocial behavior. We never give anybody harm or bad to anybody at all.
Okay, on a separate subject, your shisha pipes, do they have tobacco in it?
I'm afraid our shisha is not the main thing in the business.
The question, sir, is does your shisha have tobacco? That's the only question I asked.
It is.
Is it yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. What controls do you have in place preventing people bringing their own alcohol into the premises?
Say the questions again. I don't know what it means. The question.
Controls do you have in place, sir, to prevent people bringing in alcohol from outside?
Bring the alcohol from outside?
As suggested in the reports, that alcohol was brought in from outside by the police and made quite clearly by your representative.
It's never happened so far, but if he come in, we will stop him, tell him you're not allowed to bring your alcohol inside.
Sorry, you said it hasn't happened before. But
no, never happened.
Sorry, if you let me speak once again.
Sure.
But in the reports it says when you had this fight disturbance, there was small alcohol bottles found on the premises. So maybe you're getting quite a little confused. So listen, if you're not sure, just ask and I'll say it another way.
Sure.
Okay, we're not here to catch you out. I just want to understand exactly what the business is, how it's run, what control do you have in place, sir. I apologise if I am taking my time, but I want to be absolutely clear. So when we do get to a decision-making stage, we've got all the facts in front of us.
We're on the question of clarity. Can I just point out that the statement of Mr. Butler says there's police officers on the scene report that there was no security, etc., and that they noticed there were several little bottles of alcohol around the venue, but not in the premises. In other words, in the street around the venue.
So suggestion is from yourself, it wasn't taken to the venue where the police report states they felt people had brought alcohol from outside. So
no, they don't say people from outside brought alcohol into the premises.
I'll take it.
They do not say that.
Okay. Right, I'm just going to move over, give you a little rest. Daniel, do we have any other antisocial behaviour reports from the council or anything online complaints? Because we have had, I understand the councillor has made representation. He's not here today, but he has made representation about nuisance from multiple of things. So do we have anything from the council?
No, nothing additional that was not in the bundle, Chair.
And in terms of the DPS being changed now, in terms of your opinion now and what you've also heard, are you confident now with the change of the DPS and what you've heard already that this premises will be adhering to the licensing objectives consistently?
Chair, we fully acknowledge the move forward in bringing a new designated premises supervisor. In relation to if there's any objection, Mr. Rankin has pointed out that would fall down to procedurally the police on exceptional circumstances if they had it, but we do not have an issue.
Okay. Councillors, any questions from anybody? No, surely no. Councillor Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I noticed on the public bar door that you advertise Just Eat, which means takeaway. Do you still run this type of service?
Do you do takeaway? Yes, we do.
And I was just wondering how many scooters do you actually have outside on a busy night, say Saturday, Friday night, Saturday, to deliver this food?
Very few, not much, because we just start and it's not busy at all.
Mr. Ahmed, parking. You mentioned you have some parking. How many cars can park on your premises? On page 81 of the A3 that we have. So you show the car parking there. How many cars can park on your premises?
Between 10 to 12.
10 to 12 cars. Okay. How many cars do you normally have in terms of your customers that come in over the weekend? You say you have you have another car park as well. Where is this? It's not marked on the. Sorry, could you speak? Press the speaker on, please. No, your speaker, Mr. Rankin.
Speaker, yeah.
Thank you.
This is the staff parking. We have our residential have a big space of parking for the staff, and they rent in the house for them.
So do cut
the staff parking is we rent in the house for staff. They park in their car there, and they live in there.
Okay, the question is, so in terms of for your customer parking, this is primarily for your customer parking. So where's the overspill? Where does everybody else park their cars then, normally? Because you said you have somebody outside doing car parking or monitoring the traffic?
Yeah, but because our customer come in and go. This is mean that 10, 12 car is not staying only sometimes 15 minutes, 20 minutes and go, and another car coming, a mini cab, and we have a local customer coming walking.
Are many of your customers local?
75%. We have no problem for car park at all.
As long as the question was the problem that you have with car parking, what I'm trying to ask, the question is, does the parking cause a nuisance to other people? It wasn't a question that, does your customers find difficulty parking? Because I don't quite get when you say you have 10 parking spaces within your property, and you have a parking attendant for that? Is you have a specific person to monitor this 10 cars? If you could just clear that up for me. I'm not quite sure what.
We have the security. He's controlling the car park.
Are his duties solely concerned with the car park, or does he look after other areas?
Both.
Okay, I'm done. Any more? No? Okay then. Right, we now move on to, if nobody else has got questions of each other? No? Okay, right, we now move on to brief closing remarks from everybody. So, just make sure I get it correct, Liza. So, it's the licence holder first. If you'd like to make a brief closing remark.
I'm going to do this really quickly. It's perfectly clear from listening to you, sir, that you're on top of your game and that you've read the papers, and I know that you've been noting down with care everything that has been said on behalf of Mr. Abu Zaid. So I'm not going to repeat those, other than to say this has been an extremely helpful process, and I acknowledge the concessions that Mr. Ferrer has made.
Thank you. Mr. Darius.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in connection with openings and coverings in connection with substantially enclosed spaces, the 50% rule will be calculated on the basis that those openings are permanently open. And so it's really for the person concerned in the management of the business to bring the evidence to us to demonstrate that they comply with this requirement. And it's not for the local authority. The local authority will intervene if they are considering further enforcement action. So I'll just urge Mr. Abuzid to come to us with that information to demonstrate that you are meeting the requirements.
Thank you. Anybody else on the... speak, Ginny?
None, Chairman.
Ginny, then... Right. Finally.
Chair, I don't
now
have it.
Be the applicant.
Chair, I don't have anything further to add. All the issues and matters have been discussed. It seems like a way forward in terms of rectifying the issues, and we'll leave it at that. I'll just be merely repeating myself. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Right, we now move on to us to deliberate. So if everybody could leave the room, please take all your bits and pieces with you, computers, coats, hats, everything else. Yes, thank you. And we'll call you back when we're finished deliberating.